Good morning, BookTube. Welcome to my literary corner. It is time for my update, my bookish update. So, I believe February. So we are towards the end of February, and I have just finished a book this morning, actually. And I did surprisingly, Tome Topple was. I did feel really good about Tome Topple this month. And now that I think about it, I quote unquote read more books than I usually do, and at least, and most of them, with the exception of one book, I actually finished. But that one, the one book I didn't finish, was not because I didn't I read it all the way up to the end and just didn't finish it. It was actually because I chose not to finish it, and I potentially could have, but I decided to DNF during the last 100 or 200 pages, and that was Flashback, the 7th book in the Keeper of the Lost City series. I'm DNFing the series, and I'm just gonna look to find out what happens. I don't want to spend the time reading the book. I just want to know what's gonna happen, which may be some people, but how dare you? You should actually take the time to read the book. But I just got tired of the series. All the books are chunky books and really long. I mean, it's a good series, and don't let me steer you away from it. It's a fun series. It's about this girl named Sophie who is telepathic, and it kind of has ruined her life a little bit. She's a bit of an outsider, but then during a school trip at the museum, she sees this really cute boy that notices her and realizes who she really is, and so she chases after him, and it turns out he knows that she isn't actually an elf from another world, from his world, and his name is Fitz, by the way. And the reason why she's telepathic is it's one of the gifts that elves can have. I think it is. I don't remember if it's a gift that all elves. I think it's a gift that only one of the many talents that elves can have. So he takes her to their world. She adapts, and then she finds out not only is she part of this world, she finds out the reason why she was raised by humans was because she was, I like to call, a genetically engineered elf, where she has all these special talents like telepathy. She's an enhancer. Of course, we don't find that that she's an enhancer until later in the series. She has so many different talents. I can't keep all of them, and that's one of the things that bug me about the series is how many talents they gave her. But she is turns out that she's not only she's a genetically engineered elf because she was created by this secret rebel group called Black Swan, who do not like how the government is doing things, and they want to change things for the better. But there's also another group of rebels called the Neverseen, and there's this whole big epic war that Sophie is caught in the middle of, and meanwhile, of course, it has the relationship drama, with, she has two boys that she shares an intimate connection with, including the one that found her Fitz, and that's part of the problem why I kind of got tired of the series. Because at first, what I love about the series is, yes, that kind of stuff was in it because the main characters are kind of on the cusp of that teen age where they're gonna, have all these crazy emotions and stuff like that and be attracted to all these, but it didn't focus on that at first. It focused more on Sophie discovering this magical, amazing world, and her being caught in the middle of this war between the government and these two secret groups, the Neverseen and the Black Swan. So it was so cool at first, and it's, and I wasn't totally no longer thinking it was a cool series. It's just the 7th book was meandering a lot, so the pacing was off to me, and just throughout the last few books, you would think by now they would have more wins against the bad guys. And I guess that Shannon Messenger, the author, was trying to drag out the series a little bit too, because I think it's going to be 9 books, Which is another little minor niggling feeling. I don't like when something ends on an odd number of books, which I just realized Harry Potter does that. And no, I do not count The Cursed Child as the 8th Harry Potter book. But it's so it kind of, I don't know, it kind of irks me sometimes because I think things should end on an even number. That's why I always when I stop reading a book to take a break from it, I always try to end on an even number chapter, if it has chapters. But it's what was I gonna say? So it's still a fun, really cool series, but it's just there's things about it that started to annoy me. Not only it was because it started going into the drama of YA books that I'm starting to not love as much anymore. Like all the relationship drama, like particularly the romantic relationship drama, and then the character of Fitz, I just sometimes wanted to punch him. I couldn't stand his character. He was, as another Goodreads reviewer put, he's very much a Gary Stu, and her constantly talking about, oh, he makes my heart flutter. I hope he doesn't sense that, or he has such pretty eyes, I can't stop staring at him. I hope he doesn't notice. And yeah, maybe, probably if I had I would be the same way with the boy that I was really into. But it doesn't help that he's not a character that I'm into, that I want, and that I have a character that I root for Endgame. I mean, I have said in the past that, I'll tolerate if it ended there, but I just got tired of it. And I think the other part of the problem is that I was reading all the books one right after another, so it was like, things that bugged me became more annoying and more irritating, frustrating. And again, I had to constantly remind myself, okay, I'm not the target audience here. I'm a little older for this book series. I mean, I feel like at my age you can still enjoy and have a good time with a middle grade book. And if those aspects of it that make it show it to be more juvenile, more for younger readers, and not an adult reader, if that doesn't bother you, like it can bother me sometimes, then yeah, you'll have a great time with a young adult. Not young adult, I keep saying young adult, middle grade series. And I do feel like for me, I need to separate a little bit. I need to have time in between the books if it's going to be a long series. I mean, what I liked about some of the middle grade, I started reading one that I got from the library. I can't remember what the series is called. I can picture the covers in my head, but I can't remember the series for some reason. It's like there was a lost prince, and this guy was gonna put a foster prince on the throne, an imposter prince on the throne, and it turns out, so these boys that were the right age are being trained to be the prince. I cannot remember what the series is called. It's a good series. It's a fun series. Or actually, it's a trilogy. I think that's why I liked it, because it was a trilogy. So I could read all 3 books, one right after the other, and be cool with it. And then there was also the School for Good and Evil, although now the author's written a spin-off series, and I don't know if I want to jump back into it or not. I wish I was at the library because I could try it out, because I don't know if I want to spend the money. Especially because I'm someone who, if I get a series, I want to have all the books in the series, or I want to get them in order before I jump into the, when I get into a series, I have to have I have to have as many of the books that are, all the books that are out in order. It's, even when I'm deciding, okay, I'm going to get rid of the series, I don't want to give whoever I'm donating the series to, I don't want to give them just some of the books. Although I did that for Terry, but that's because Terry lives in Florida, so it's kind of hard for me to give her all the books. And I'm still debating if I want to continue. And I'm talking about Outlander, by the way. But anyway, back to Tome Topple. So I DNF'd that series. I ended up getting rid of all the books And I'll just like look up the information just to find out what happens, like look at reviews, because some reviews do spoil things. And there's discussion video, and some people might do discussion videos, so I'll watch those, even if like, and no one can tell me, I don't want to spoil it for you, you should read the book, which I don't like that. Like, I don't like when people are like, well, I don't want to spoil it for you, because maybe you just want to know. There are some times where things that I just want to know what's going to happen. I mean, even Terry herself, because she wants to know if it's worth getting the book, if her favorite couple is going to get together. So she just wants to know, and then she'll take the time to read the book. And I know some people probably think that's ridiculous and crazy, but I do believe there really are people in the world, not just on TV shows and movies, like doing it as a cute trait. But I do think there are people in the world, in real life, that do feel the need to look back. And Terry being an example, I have to look and read the last sentence. Or read, just to see if they're going to be interested in if the ending is worth getting to. I mean, I do think there are people like that. I mean, I just watched a booktuber that I watch on and off. She did my boyfriend picks my TBR kind of video, and she also would pick his TBR, and they also decided that she would pick his TBR, and that's what he said. He had to read the last sentence of the book before he decided to read it, just to check it out. Although I think he was going to read it anyway for her anyway, which I think is really cute. So the other books I read were, Thornhill, which I no longer have in my possession. The other books at least two of the other books that I have, but I don't want to take them off my shelf because the way my shelf is organized, if you can tell, some of the books are like stacked on top of each other, and I don't want to have to pull it out. But so I'll just tell you. So the other one is the one I don't have is Thornhill by Pam Smee. I don't know how to say her last name. It's a middle grade series about two girls, one from 2017, Ella, and one from 1982, Mary. And Ella is a girl that I always assume when I was reading, I assumed that her mom had died. It's her and her dad. Her dad's a bit of a workaholic, or at least he's always working. And I guess I can't fairly say he's a workaholic because it doesn't give you that information, and it doesn't show you. All you know is that he's working a lot, and he's never home. He's always working late, and Ella will constantly find notes saying, "Sorry, honey, I'm working late. You're on your own with dinner." And they move into this house across from this decrepit, falling apart building, which turns out to be an institution for orphan girls. And that's where we have the whole 1982 storyline with Mary. Mary is a mute girl, a selective mute, living in an orphanage, this institute orphanage. And there is one particular girl at the orphanage and I don't remember if they gave her name or not. I constantly want to say her name was Rachel, but I don't think it was Rachel. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about another character. And Rachel always bullies Mary, constantly mocks her and bullies her, and all the other girls want to hang out with this other girl and want to be friends with her, and they follow her around, so they bully Mary along with her. Like, they will take her shoelace off her shoes, they will humiliate her, and Mary constantly, every night, her room is up in the attic of the building, and she always knows when the girl that bullies her is gonna show up, because she hears a thumping, and then a scratching on the wood, because it's an old house. And Mary just cannot defend herself because she's a selective mute, and I think it's also part of a defense mechanism in a way. And of course, it's a disability. But the other caretakers, with the exception of one woman who is very sympathetic, Mary wants to help her and knows, and wants to be there for her, but the other caretakers are like, oh, there's no proof she's being bullied, and oh, it's her own fault. She asked for this. She should put in more effort to make friends with the other girls, especially this one girl, and they even believe that maybe her select mutism is not legit. Which I wanted to slap that woman who said that. especially because like Mary, I assumed that woman was actually cared about Mary, wanted to help her, wanted to be her friend. But no, in the end of the day, it was, oh, Mary's fault. She asked for it. And that pissed me off. Especially because this girl has select mutism, which is a disability that is not like, it's not like blindness or being in a wheelchair or, or like, it's it's a disability it's not quote unquote obvious disability. It's kind of an invisible one. And I just felt so bad for Mary, and somehow Ella learns more about the building, learns Mary's story through newspaper articles and research in the library, and she finds out that something happened to Mary, but she's not certain if it actually happened, because when Ella decides to explore the area where the building is, explore the grounds, she sees this girl there on the grounds and a bunch of clay dolls. And you learn that Mary used to make these clay dolls and for fun, to keep herself entertained, because she was always by herself. And that was her only source of comfort. And this was a really heartwarming, great, very sad book about these two girls and their loneliness, how they're both so alone in the world. They feel so lonely, even though Ella has a loving father. He's not around, and he's always working. And she finds comfort in learning Mary's story and realize that if she had been in Mary's life, then she would have been friends with Mary. And it's all about dealing with bullying and disabilities, and there are certain disabilities that aren't always taken as seriously because, they're not like severe. Or at least they don't seem as severe as other disabilities. And it's such a heartbreaking story. It's definitely one that I think you should read with your kids. And it went by really fast. The reason why I was able to get, not just because it was middle grade, the writing style is a little faster for me to get through, but also Ella's story is told through illustrations. So there's a good chunks throughout the novel that are illustration format. And then Mary's story is told through her diary entries. Now, the one downside of that is because I felt like, because of the limited perspective, we only got Mary telling us what happened, things that happened. I felt like the ending was a little incomplete. I mean, I was cool with the ending. I didn't have a problem with it. It was a good ending, but it felt incomplete, like it was missing something. Like, I was very confused, and like all of a sudden this happened in the end. It was like, oh, well, how'd I get there? But maybe that's because I'm an adult reader. I'm 30 years old. I'll be 31 this year. And this is for between the ages of 12 and 15. So it was a little, it felt like I said, felt like it was missing something. Okay, so the other ones, let me just, since I don't have much to say about this one, this ones, because there's 3 of them. I finally listened to the audiobook trilogy of Lord of the Rings. Because it was one of these things where I always felt like, even though no one ever said anything to me, there was no one messaging me on here or anything like that. I never interacted with anyone online or anything about it. But I always felt like guilty because I hadn't even tried. I mean, I did try. I read the first 4 chapters of The Fellowship of the Ring. Yes, I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. But I always feel like, because I've heard where people will say, oh, if you don't read Lord of the Rings, it's not real, you're not a real fantasy fan, which I do think is ridiculous. But I still felt like, okay, I gotta try it. I gotta find some way to read it. And now people will say that listening to audiobooks is not actually reading it, because you're not physically staring at the page and trying to understand the words. But I tried reading the first 4 chapters and I got kind of, I hate to say it, bored. I would rather just watch the movie. I was definitely spoiled by the movie because there's music, there's a whole bunch of actors, there's special effects, there's you know the movies offer so much that with a book you have to use your own imagination, which is not bad. It's a good thing, and but it's just easier for me to sit down and put on a movie. So then my librarian reminded me of the Libby app, so I downloaded it. I finally listened to all 3 books, and I got mad. I couldn't help but compare it to the movies. But it was great. It was so nice it was really great to listen to Tolkien's beautiful words and to not feel like exhausted from reading long-winded sentences, just to listen to them instead of having to actually read them myself. And there is a simplicity and a magic, a whimsy to Tolkien's trilogy, original trilogy. Of course, some people would say it's not a trilogy, it's 1 book. He put in 3 parts. But right now, it's currently published as 3 books, so it's a trilogy to me. Again, I don't know why I'm getting defensive, because it's not like no one ever says anything to me. But, so I listened to it. It was good. Like I said, I kept comparing it I couldn't help but compare it to the movies. And I feel like my only issue is I do not like the voice actor for Frodo. I mean, I respect him. I should know he worked hard on that. And it's a full cast. The one I listen to, the ones I listened to of the 3 parts was a full cast. It wasn't like, I know that the original audio record, there's one that came out, I want to say in the 90s, that was one voice actor narrating the story, but mine was a full cast of a whole bunch of different actors, although one actor played more than 1 part with some of them, because there are so many, such a big cast. But I did not like Frodo's voice actor. It felt like he didn't have enough emotion. But like I said, I was spoiled by the movies. I was spoiled by Elijah Wood's performance. That's what I say in the voice actor's defense. But it felt like he didn't put enough emotion into it. I mean, he did a little bit. But that's about not enough for me, at least in my opinion. But I'm glad I listened to it, so because I can feel like justified and be like, so I may not actually physically read it, but I did listen to the book itself. I listened to the actual book, or books. Okay, so now as of right, so I'm not. So the other tomes I read were Red Seas Under Red Skies, the second in the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch. That was really great. Sam from Thoughts and Tomes, the host of Tome Topple, described it perfectly in her review from a couple years ago, that it's Ocean's 11 meets Pirates of the Caribbean, this one, because Locke and Jean are going on a heist. They are actually going to rob a place that is it's like robbing Las Vegas or Atlantic City. The Sin Spire. But their plans get thwarted by this guy who knows who they are. And he's like, okay, fine, I'll help you with this. Because he doesn't like the guy that they're trying to rob. He doesn't want him in power anymore. Because he kind of owns the city. And this guy, Stravos, is like, I want my reputation as the most feared, as the owner of the city. So he enlists Locke and Jean to be pirates for him. And to try to pretend to betray him, and then that way, and he'll stop them, and then it will establish his reputation again. But of course, things fall apart when Locke fails to be a good pirate, In fact, one of the things that I think is both funny and ridiculous is that he fails to bring cats on board, and he is told that when he was first signing up, he was told by the guy that was training them to be good pirates that cats are good luck, and if you don't bring cats, then they're like, oh, it's bad luck, raining down on us, and it was like actually really kind of funny. They're all getting all upset at him. Part of their suspicion, what leads to their suspicion of him, is he didn't bring the cats. He lied about the cats, about bringing cats on board. And it's like, what? Why? I mean, cats are great animals. They're great pets, but you're just a bunch of stupid, superstitious idiots. And then they end up getting caught by another pirate ship who's led by a female pirate, which was even more awesome. Like, female pirates, yes. And it has humor, it has adventure, high sea swashbuckling adventure, and Locke and Jean doing what they do best, being thieves. And then, of course, there is a little bit of romance in this one. There's between, for Jean, actually gets a little bit of a romance, which I thought was really cute. I love that little romance. I thought it was really sweet and really fun. And it was just a fun adventure story, a pirate adventure story. And I'm with Sam. It's a pirate story to me. I don't read a lot of pirate stories, but she does. So if she says it's a pirate novel, then I'm going to say it's a pirate novel. And then the other book that I did finish was Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I was trying to get Elantris and Warbreaker read, and then I would get back into The Way of Kings, because originally those two were standalones, but I do think Brandon Sanderson is writing sequels, or thinking about writing sequels for both those books. Elantris is a story about this city that is like filled with people that are gods. They have godlike powers. But then one day they get cut off from their magic. And they are falling apart and diseased looking, and the kingdom outside of there is ruled by King Iadon. His son, Prince Raoden, when he's going to get married, he contacts the disease that sends them to Elantris. And he is thrown in, but King Iadon leads everyone to believe, because he doesn't want anyone to know that his son has become an Elantrian, that his son just died. And coincidentally, the son, Raoden's fiancée, Princess Serene from Teod, who they were trying to form an alliance with, decides to show up early to meet her husband, who they've communicated via kind of like today's Skype or Facebook or something, where they've communicated but not really ever met. It's like they communicated online. And she shows up and is forced to, but because she's still contractually married to Raoden, she becomes a widow and a queen to this kingdom. And both of those two have to adapt to their new situations, trying to help their situation, thinks the problems of their situation, like Raoden is introduced to Elantris and realizes that he could help them, make things better for them, make them independent so people would no longer be afraid of them, and that they would not eventually get wiped out. So he makes them independent, he teaches them all these things, and gives them purpose to their lives. They're not, because they're still physically alive, it's just they're not, they don't need to eat anymore. Their city is all disgusting and falling apart and everything. So he decides to help them and teach them, and he tries to understand what brought them to this state. He learns about he studies the magic system and tries to find out clues to what happened. While Serene is essentially, she decides to help Iadon, even financially, so the kingdom doesn't fall apart. And she also thinks with help from her uncle and cousin, she forms a friendship an alliance with some of the nobles who want to overthrow Iadon, and they work to kind of find ways to, like, not exactly to overthrow him, but to also help him, so that they won't have to deal with this huge mess if they are successful. And then the other main character we have is Hathren. He is a sort of priestess, or not priestess, he's not a woman, he's a man, a priest, who is trying to spread his religion of Jadath, and wants to convert the people of this city and convert all the cities because he believes his religion is the right one. And he uses the Elantrians as an excuse, like being like, Jadath has made them into monsters. He has chosen to destroy them. And he even has this man who is another priest, or a monk that's a bit of a religious zealot, show up. He comes and he has him become his apprentice. Which, actually, I just realized my review of it before, my description of what this book is about was so much better than what I'm struggling with trying to explain to you guys now. But, so it's the journey of all three of these characters, and it's such a fascinating story. Like I said in my review, I really like the magic system. I mean, it's Brandon Sanderson. He always comes up with really cool, intricate magic systems. I think it's good. I don't know why people don't like it or think it's the worst book. Granted, I would have to read two Brandon Sanderson books at the same time to compare the writing style, but I'm probably never going to do that. But I think it's great. I think Elondris was great. I had a good time with it. Okay, so I am currently reading. I just started. Well, first I attempted to read Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I didn't like that one as much as Circe. I ended up DNFing that 40%. It's basically the story. If you're familiar with Troy and the Iliad, it's kind of that story, but from the perspective of Patroclus, who is the companion to Achilles. And Madeline Miller is going with the angle of the whole belief that everyone believed that Patroclus was in love with Achilles. They weren't just friends, but he loved him. And I wasn't really interested in that aspect. I mean, I don't mind, like I said, I like that kind of romance in my stories, but I don't want it to take over the story, and the first part was all about that. Now, I guess maybe if I continued, maybe it wouldn't be so much part of that, because I did read one review that said that eventually it's put to the wayside, but I just was kind of bored with the book. And I was more interested in some of my other library books, which includes this one, A Gentleman in Moscow, by Omar, I don't know how to say the author's last name, Amor Towles. He's the same, I think it's a he, same author who wrote, it's a he. He's the same author who wrote Rules of Civility, which I really like. Oh, and this is a staff pick, Audrey, who I do not know who Audrey is. I don't know if it's based on a true story or not. I think it might be based on a true story about the Count Alexander Rostov. I still don't know how the Russian pronunciation. This count who was banished and sent to live in Moscow in 1922. It's about his life at the hotel and observing everybody. And it's really cool because the first part, I have read a little bit of it. I've read up to page 19. But the first part opens with a transcript, which I guess is what leads to, the transcript is what leads him to be, although I think he was already, but where he's a transcript of an interview where he's questioned about something, It mentions a poem that he wrote, and I guess that is kind of what triggered him to be banished or something. What was the catalyst? But I haven't read very far. I'm just at the part where I read the transcript, and then there's the whole him going to. He was in this nice big fancy suite room, and then when he gets there, he has to go to a smaller, not so nice room, and that's where I am at. And he's kind of remembering things. So I am also reading. At least I'm reading Wheel of Time, the first book, The Eye of the World. I got back into it, and I think I mentioned that I've been bringing it with me. It's the book I decided to bring with me to work to read during my 15-minute breaks. Unfortunately, as I said in the past, I only get through a couple pages when I do that. There have been a few times where I have to wait around to get for my rides down because I do not drive, or because my dad wants to be on the golf course or be on the lake by a certain time. Sometimes they'll drop me off even earlier, so I get time. But that doesn't happen as often as it. But that's the one appeal of being dropped off even earlier, because then I get a little bit more time to read. So I'm at the point in the book where they've stopped in another place, another city or town or whatever, and they have been joined by the wise woman of what is their place called? Where they live is called. What is that place called? Is it on the map? Edmondsfield. From their village of Edmondsfield, and she has been sent to come back and bring the boy Rand and his friends back because they're like, and I feel really bad because Moiraine keeps being, because she's so powerful and be so dangerous. Everyone's all like, "Oh, you're evil. We can't trust you. Why should we trust her?" And like they're all like acting like, and Nynaeve, I don't know how to say her name, is all like thinks, "Well, if I take the children back and get them away from you, they'll be fine." And it's like, it drives me crazy when characters assume that, because it's like, you cannot run away from this. You think that, yes, maybe that person is kind of what started it, but, you really think that the bad guys are going to just leave alone? Oh, let's take them back home where they'll be safe. It's like, they won't be safe. You think the bad guys will just leave them alone? It's the same thing as the whole excuse of pushing someone away for their own good. It's like, what? Unless you erase people's memories, they're gonna still remember, and they know, unless you just feel nothing, unless they realize and they learn that, you generally don't feel anything for that person, they're not gonna leave them alone. You think just pushing them away or taking them to the supposed safe home is gonna, it doesn't work like that. But I guess it's the last thread of hope that things will be okay, that your life won't change forever for the worse. Oh, and I also, so I was looking at, I didn't read much of it, but I did look at some of the questions, and I avoided the spoilers. But it's funny that I did get spoiled a tiny bit for something that's going to happen later, but I don't know exactly what it was. Someone just asked. So I'm supposed to remember this character for, that was like in a book from a way back. Because there are so many characters. I mean, look how thick these books are. But, and they mentioned the character's name and stuff, so when I was reading, I read some chapters where that character is brought up, and it's like, oh, so that's the character that they're talking about. That's going to come up later. So, although I think it's a good thing that you're spoiled to some degree, because then, that way at least for me, that way I'll remember certain things, like references to characters that are going to come up later in the series and stuff like that. So, as they are being chased by Trollocs, which I guess are the equivalent to orcs in this world, and they are being, let's see what else, the Fades, which I guess are like ring wraiths. And I'm saying this because everyone compares this book to this very yeah, it has similarities to Tolkien's work, but it's still a very different story. And there's like in the main, there's no hobbits in this one. There's no hobbit-like characters. There's just humans. So, and I think it's kind of stupid when people are like, "Oh, it's plagiarizing Lord of the Rings," and "Oh, how dare they?" I mean, people get it's funny. People when publishers and marketing teams compare it to another series, and they realize it's not like that series, they get mad. But if it's similar to that series or that book, they still get mad because it's like, "Oh, you're plagiarizing." It's like, no, they are just like they are similar, but doesn't mean that it's going to be a carbon copy. I mean, if a book was really a carbon copy, then yeah. But I don't think a book will be published if it's a carbon copy or like actually. Granted, it's not like people ever know, but although I think they're more prone not to know if someone stole someone else's idea, which that's what happened with the book that just came out. Murphy Napier did a review, and I think Emma from Emma Books also talked about. I can't remember what it's called, but about the girl who, in the private school she moves to, she has a relationship with her teacher. And she's when things come out about this guy, she's forced to reevaluate that relationship and realize it's not as romantic as she thought. I cannot remember what it's called. Oh, Dark Vanessa. That's what it's called. And it sounds like a very interesting book. It's just not my kind of, it's not something I'm interested in. But I'm sure it is a really great book. But yeah, that one, there was the controversy of, someone accused the author of stealing their idea, but then the author, unfortunately, was forced to reveal that, no, this is something that has happened to me, and that's why I wrote it. So she was forced to admit that what inspired her to write this. It's hard to, sometimes you gotta wonder if the only reason people, that situation, at least with that kind of situation, were only saying it for money purposes. It actually kind of reminds me of the premise of Secret Garden, Secret Window, or Secret Window, Secret Garden, where where the main character gets accused of stealing someone else's story, and then the guy who's accusing him is like, well, okay, fine, but you gotta rewrite the ending, so it's like my story, or something along those lines. But so it has similarities, and you can see where he draws. But then eventually, from what I'm told, the story goes on its own path. I mean, in this book, it has so many. This whole series has a lot of books, and then eventually Sally Jordan passed, and Brandon Sanderson took over, and the series is finished, and now they're going to make a movie. That's why I'm more determined than ever to read this book this year, because not a movie, but a TV series. Because, I think my problem with series is if they make a movie version or a TV show version, then all of a sudden, because if I watch that first, I'm like, oh, I'm not interested in that because I've already seen it. So I don't need to read the book because I know the story. And so I'm gonna try to, along with the Witcher series. So. Okay, so the last book, the one I actually finished this morning, was Washington Black by Essie Edugyan. I can't pronounce her last name. I need to hear it. But this was a Man Booker winner. It's a very beautiful story. I'm probably going to give it 3 stars. I haven't rated it yet on Goodreads. But it's about our title character, Washington Black. He's a slave in Barbados, and his owner is Erasmus Wild, and Erasmus, his brother Christopher, aka Titch, shows up and he's a man of science, an inventor, a man of invention. He wants to be just like his father. He shows up with the intention of needing one of his brother's slaves to assist him in his work to build what he calls an aeronaut, aka basically an air balloon. And he meets Washington Black and decides to take him on and take him away from one of the slaves who kind of is been like a mother or older sister figure, big Kit away from her. And Washington begins to be part of this man's, becomes his assistant, learns about science, learns to read and write, learns all these house chores that he could never do before, and surprisingly, he really is excited about learning that because it's something that we take for granted because we do it on an everyday basis, but he's never done it. And eventually, and everything's going well. He shows a talent for drawing. He's able to draw all the specimens that Titch discovers. But then things take a turn for the complicated or the worse when their cousin Philip shows up. And he's a bit depressed, and he's a very opinionated person. But then he reveals to Titch and Erasmus that their father has died. And that Erasmus his mother wants him to come home to run the home in England, and that Titch probably could stay here and run the plantation, but it's the last thing Titch wants to do. And then one night, when Philip and Washington are alone, he takes Washington out beyond the plantation and kills himself. But unfortunately, it looks like Wash was the one that killed him. So Titch and Wash flee on the partially finished aeronaut and crash land on a boat, which takes them to America, particularly to the state of Virginia, where coincidentally a friend of Titch, a fellow scientist, is there. And along the way, Titch has suspicions that his father might not be dead after all, so they go to where his father is, in the Arctic. And things pick up from there. So that's all I'm gonna say. This is a very heartwarming self-discovery journey about this young black boy. It's really good. I enjoyed it, and it's a very heart-wrenching story. It's beautifully written. Although I can see people's points about it being very tell and not very show, with a lot of throughout the book, and also there's times when Wash is a little boy that he says he uses words because of the author's writing style. They're like, you know that word? Like because he's not very educated because he is sadly a slave. So it takes him a long time, and he can't read for the longest time. Adds a little bit of romance in the second half of the story. I think it's a very beautiful story and definitely worth checking out. I don't know if some people in the reviews said they didn't understand why it was considered a Man Booker winner. I don't have a problem that it was the winner. I don't know why. It was a good book. It was about a very important topic. So I don't really have any strong opinions on that because it's like it wasn't a bad book. Maybe it did deserve it, but I also wasn't like, I wouldn't say I was like, oh my god, this is the best book ever. But I don't think it was a bad book either, or an average book. But I don't think it was anything fabulous either. I guess in a way, yeah, I do think it was kind of average. So it's just, I just thought that was interesting that people were like, why did it win the prize? It wasn't anything super special. I feel like that's objective. Or subjective. I always use those two words mixed up. I always end up having to look up which one is which. But I don't think it's all a matter of opinion, just like how you feel about a book in general, If you love a book, it's a matter of opinion if a book deserves to be an award winner or not. Of course, I think award winners, it's usually because part of it is because of what they're about is very important. It's something that's especially people are talking about a lot today. It's like the topic of each generation. It's a great adventure. If you like adventure stories, if you like historical fiction, you might like this. So, lips are so dry right now. I need a chapstick, but I don't have any. I'll probably, when I'm done filming, I'll probably get that from my purse. But anyway, that's not much going on. I am, of course, I'm coming up. My visit going to my grandma's is coming up, so I'm thinking about what I'm gonna bring, the books I'm gonna bring, and I keep thinking about all the new books I just got. I've accumulated. I want to bring all those, but most of those are hardback, so it's gonna add some weight. Good news, we drive there, and I'm gonna be gone even longer than last time. I'm gonna be gone like a whole week, because we're actually gonna be there for a week this time instead of just the weekend. I still have not gotten started on my other 3 library books, which are all. I think I already showed you these. This one, One of Us is Lying. The one is kind of like a mystery. Like if The Breakfast Club was a murder mystery, this is what it would be. It's from, like, I've been compared. It's been compared to that movie. And then there is a sequel to it. One of Us is Next. I got another Ruth Ware book. One of The Death of Miss Westaway. I don't really know what it's about. I just know it's Ruth Ware, and I liked her. A lot of people. I mean, I know a lot of people. There are people recently that I've heard have said, well, particularly I was watching Peter Likes Books, and he was saying how he felt like Ruth Ware's The Woman in Cabin 10 is not his favorite because he wasn't wowed by it. So, I wasn't wowed by it either, but I still liked it. That was good. I think I gave it. I don't remember how many stars. I don't know, but I thought it was pretty good and very interesting, very entertaining. But I don't read a lot of thrillers, so I have nothing to really compare it to. I mean, I've read a few, but I wanted to go ahead and get this one. I saw this one there because it turns out there's 2 more Ruth Ware books, not just the one my sister bought me, or my nephews bought me, or The Woman in Cabin 10. Those were the only ones I saw there, but the last week, I saw this one, and then there's another. I don't know if In a Dark Dark Wood is there. I want to say there were 2 other Ruth Ware books there, but I don't know if that was one of them. So I'm going to read this one. I need to read that one, and then The Cabin at the End of the World. And this is one of April from Getting Hygge With It. This is one of her favorites, and she's a fan of the author Paul Tremblay. And this is also actually blurbed by Stephen King. And every time she talks about it, she only talks about the opening scene, which is it's this little girl and her fathers. Her fathers, I believe, are 2 gay men. And these men approach her when she's out playing and say, "We want you to remember this is not your fault." And then something happens. So it feels like it's a little thriller with sci-fi from what I've heard about it. So, the blurb from Stephen King is actually a tremendous book, thought-provoking and terrifying, with tension that winds up like a chain. The Cabin at the End of the World is Tremblay's personal best. It's that good. And then the author of You, Carolyn Kepnes, also blurbed it. I can't read that blurb because the library thing, sticker or whatever, this thing is in the way. And I don't know these other 2 authors. But the only time I really care about the blurbs is when I talk about them to you guys. Okay, I'll occasionally bring them up. But also, if I already know what the book is about, then yeah, I'll be like, okay, blurbs, let me see. Let me just check them out. But like I said, I'm a firm believer in who cares about the blurbs? I want to know what the book's about. I just don't like it when the blurbs basically dominate the book and you don't get any description of what the book is about. So I haven't started those yet. I decided to do this one first. I always try to read them in order of how long I've had the books. But now I can officially mark historical fiction. I remember really loving this cover. The gold on the cover I thought was really pretty, and there's the cloud cutter, the aeronaut is on the cover. And I'm guessing this is probably the scene in the section when they're running away. And then there's the back. At one point they go to Morocco. So this is I'm guessing this is supposed to be, oh wait, no, never mind. This is not the direct, this is the Arctic. Yeah, that's right. This is the Arctic, I think. So they go to, but yeah, spoiler, they go to Morocco at some point too. That's all I'm going to say. But I just love this cover. Okay, so I don't know where I'm going to start. I'm just going to kind of focus. Today, I do feel like I need to read a little bit more of this. But I'm going to take a break. So, come on, break and brick. So I'm going to read this one first. And I'm also going to read this one. I feel like I definitely did progress in these two. And I'm going to go through my shelves and see. And I feel like I need to jump into the fifth season. Because every time I've started, it's a book that I brought with me. Actually, coincidentally, South Carolina. And I haven't, South Carolina. I think I also brought it with me when we went to Virginia to see my sister. But I didn't really read much of it. So I need to read a little bit more while I'm at home before I go to my grandma's house. Because I think sometimes, although we don't stay as long. This is one of my longer visits. I haven't done a week-long visit in a long time. I think since we moved. Because it's like, now we live in a state away, so, it's a 3-hour drive, so we can just stay the weekend, and then that's it. There's no need. I mean, there is a need in a way, because my grandma's, she's lonely, but I can't stay that long, because, I can't, regularly ask off work for a week all the time, and my dad does work on the golf course, my mom still works too, so it's not like we can ask off all the time. So we can't really do it. And my grandma she's comfortable in her home, so she doesn't like, taking the time to pack and come here, and I understand that. And it is always a relief when you come home and you're back in your own bed. It's very much a comfort, but yeah, so this will be, a long time since I last. I'm trying to think if I have stayed there for a week before, since we moved. I might have. I don't know, I can't think of any other time I've stayed there for. Since we moved. I don't remember. But anyway, so I'm still trying to figure out what books I'm going to bring for that. A lot of them might be hardbacks. But like I said, the 5th season, I want to see if I can find it, because unfortunately I don't know my books as well as some people say that they do when they have their books. Like Holly, was sad that, oh, don't worry, I know where my books are, and I don't, because I ended up changing the order of my books anyway, not that long ago before I did this. So I don't know where all my books are. I know what certain sections are. Like, I know where my fantasy books are and my historical fiction, and then over there is all my classics, but that's about it. I don't know exactly which books are where. Some of them, yeah, I can tell, because you can see a little bit of the cover and stuff like that, and they're near books that I've turned around. But the 5th season, I'm gonna have to find where that one is. And I couldn't even remember where I put the rest of the books I have from this series. I gotta find that one, and then, like I said, today I want to read Eye of the World and A Gentleman in Moscow. I want to progress in those, and like I said, I want to progress in the 5th season. And that's about it. So that is what's going on with my reading. Feel free, as always, share in the comments below what you are currently reading. And If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell icon below if you're interested in being notified when I post new videos, since my posting videos is a bit sporadic sometimes. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!